Hi, welcome back. After a few more theoretical, sort of gray and gray videos, I want to do something fun and loose today. Not as deep, maybe, and my idea of fun might be different from yours, but it's still gonna be useful, I think, if you're interested in philosophy, especially academic philosophy. So here we go. 5 wrong ideas about philosophy. While it's true that some philosophers engage in life philosophy, most of us don't. We don't think about how to deal with life's problems. We don't give that kind of advice. Many philosophers today actually tend to think that their philosophical problems have little to do with regular people and everyday stuff. They think that philosophy is much like science. It might touch people's lives in some indirect ways, but as such, it doesn't help people and it's not really meant to. Personally, I'm skeptical of life philosophy as a subfield. By definition, it has to talk about people's lives in a very broad fashion. That brings with it the constant danger of overgeneralization or of applying the individual philosopher's experiences to too many people, people who might not have that kind of experience. Indeed, the life philosophy I've read, I haven't read that much of it, really only pertains to a tiny sliver of people from very specific backgrounds. The problems this is kind of philosophy is trying to solve aren't even my problems. And compared to most people, I fit in with philosophers pretty well in terms of my demographics. If you ask me what the meaning of life is, I'm just going to give the unsatisfying answer that that's a bad question. Maybe a topic for another time. What I can definitely say is that not all philosophy, not nearly all philosophy, is life philosophy. There are sort of two camps of non philosophers talking about philosophy here. Those who've tried to read a philosophical classic and found it mind numbingly dry and boring, and those who think philosophy basically consists of these sort of snappy one liners. They're both wrong, though one is more wrong than the other. Generally speaking, philosophers don't try to capture the whole world or capture their own experience in their writing. While philosophical schools like phenomenology are very interested in the world as it appears to us, even they are necessarily after some grand truth, the lightning of wisdom captured in the bottle of a short quip. Most philosophers would probably agree that they're trying to say what they want to say, not allude to something beyond direct expression, make the reader feel something in the way that poetry does. They would also agree that communicating complex thought is very tricky and will go wrong a lot. That is why very much work among philosophers is devoted to understanding each other. Speaking in more or less veiled references, like poets do, would make that even harder. This isn't to say that there aren't philosophers who are also poets. If you write a lot and think a lot, every now and then you might hit upon a few lines that seem to capture more than their immediate meaning. And then you have philosophers like Friedrich Nietzsche. Much of his philosophy is in aphorisms, is in short paragraphs, and there, arguably, philosophy and poetry can blend together. And I think also that is true of some Asian philosophy. But generally speaking, philosophers don't talk like poets, and we don't want to. 3. Philosophy is about demonstration. I'm sure you've heard the famous anecdote. A philosophy student took an exam. He was asked to define bravery. Instead of writing about bravery, he scrawled, "This is bravery," across his sheet of paper and handed it in and got top marks. It's a neat story, but I have to disappoint you. Arguably, this kind of thing is the exact opposite of philosophy. First, we don't usually deal with definitions in that sense. If I wrote a philosophical essay about bravery, it wouldn't be to say what bravery actually is. It'd be more likely to collect a lot of philosophical theories and opinions about bravery and to try and make them talk to each other, try to find out what's generally accepted about bravery. And I'd also ask the question whether it's correctly generally accepted. Did you notice a little sentence I used a moment ago? Philosophy is about saying something. It's a game where the counters are linguistic. Demonstrating, exemplifying anything isn't part of the game and gets you not top marks but weird looks. Now, demonstrations might help you get going philosophically, and what it means to exemplify something is a really classic philosophical issue. But showing one instance of the thing you're trying to discuss does nothing philosophically. The other philosophers will roll their eyes and stuff you in a locker. Very, very politely. Ethics, the study of ideas surrounding morality, right and wrong, is an important field in philosophy. Getting your philosophy degree, you're usually required to do something in that area at least. When I started studying philosophy, I thought my philosophical focus would be ethics, because ethics was what had gotten me interested in philosophy in the first place. But most philosophy is not ethics. Broadly speaking, we can differentiate between practical philosophy and theoretical philosophy. Now, practical philosophy sounds to many like a contradiction in terms, and I kind of get why, but that's not what practical means here. Practical philosophy contains subfields of philosophy related to issues about what people should do. Not only telling people what it is that they should do, but also discussing what people say and write and think about what they should do. Practical philosophy contains ethics, but also political philosophy, the philosophy of law, and also the philosophical part of stuff like the ethics of medicine, the ethics of psychology, and so forth. Typically, philosophical feminism is also grouped with practical philosophy because of its obvious social implications. There are more subfields, so we can say that practical philosophy is big, but there's also a whole other branch of the field of philosophy. Theoretical philosophy deals with issues like what it is to know something, the philosophy of science, philosophy of language. You could also group under theoretical philosophy things like formal logic and ontology, which is a subfield relating to what kind of things we should say they are. Don't worry about it too much, it's a whole thing. Classically, theoretical philosophy was said to be about inquiry, about finding stuff out, while practical philosophy was about norms, about telling people what they should be doing. This distinction has softened for very good reasons, but it's a decent catch-all. Now, I just said that theoretical philosophy is about inquiry, about finding stuff out. That kind of sounds like science, right? But I think 99% of all theoretical philosophers don't think of it like that. I'm in theoretical philosophy, and I certainly don't think that it's our task to replace or offer an alternative to science. I actually think that would be extremely foolhardy to even try, and doomed to fail and dangerous in various ways. Online, especially, you sometimes find these guys, these grifters, calling themselves philosophers and or scientists. They try to tell you that if you only buy their book or more often visit their very expensive seminar, they're going to synthesize the best of science and the best of philosophy and give you something even greater, the meaning of life, perfect knowledge, and you'll be enlightened, you'll be transformed. A typical genre of that is what I'd call quantum woo, taking words from physical quantum theory and pretend it changes everything, makes the mystical scientific, even proves the existence of deities and all that stuff. That's crap. These people don't figure in science because they're not interested in having their ideas critically examined, and let alone experimentally tested. They don't figure in philosophy because their terminology is so garbled it often doesn't even mean anything. It's, if you look closely, it's just gibberish. No, philosophy is not an alternative to science. Science does things and philosophy does things, and you can benefit from both. Ideas of a synthesis between certain ideas pertaining to science and more classically philosophical approaches were popular at one point in recent history, but what they amounted to was more a refinement of what's the proper sphere of science and the proper sphere of philosophy, not replacing one with the other. So there you have it. 5 wrong ideas about philosophy. Do the YouTube things, subscribe and like and share and all that good stuff. I hope you learned something. I hope this was fun, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.